Senator Preston Smith served 3 terms as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. On April 12, 2010, that would change. In retribution for his refusal to go along with Senate leadership and vote for a tax increase, his role as chairman was stripped away.
When they said, Senator, if you don't vote to raise this tax to balance the budget, then we'll take away your chairmanship of Judiciary, which is a position that I'd held for 3 terms.
But I represent between 150,000 and 200,000 constituents. I am the only voice that they have in this Senate body, and neither my principle nor their voice is on the auction block.
So I held my word to my constituents. I voted no on the tax increase. They took away the chairmanship of Judiciary. And I think that's probably important because for too long we have had a situation both in Washington and sometimes in Atlanta where politicians get elected on one platform and then end up voting against the very constituents that elected them.
When are we going to blow the whistle and say enough?
I took a very public position in my opposition to the tax bill because I feel like that the time has come that we have to speak out.
Members of the Senate, please hear me. If this raw exercise of power can be used on me today, it will be used on you tomorrow.
The direction that our country, and in some cases our state, has been going needs to be turned around. We need to return to conservative principles. We need to fight for limited government. We're seeing what's happening in Washington, D.C. by a government that believes they know better than the people that live in our communities how we should live and work.
And I believe, perhaps incorrectly, that one of the foundational cornerstones of the Republican Party was to reduce the size and scope of government, to cut fraud, waste, and abuse, rather than raising taxes.
The constituents that elected me in Northwest Georgia expected me to come down and fight for them. That's why we elect people. They didn't want me to come down to Atlanta and trade their vote for some political position.
I firmly believe that when you attempt to improperly influence a legislator's voice or vote through promises of reward or threats of recrimination, it is unethical, immoral, and it is illegal.
As a state senator, I've demonstrated my willingness to put conservative principles into practice in state government. I fought to expand the Second Amendment. I fought to grow our pro-life laws in Georgia to make sure we defend the sanctity of innocent life. I've helped to write and enforce some of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. I've fought for limited government and voted for lower taxes every single time. And I've paid a price for that.
And if my leadership wants to punish me for following my conscience, that is the prerogative that the power of their position offers them, and it will be their legacy.
I don't know who the next governor is going to be, but I know that the Attorney General matters this time more than any other. And who we elect is going to be the last check for the people of Georgia to stand up against the federal government and defend our state's rights and our Constitution. We should not elect an Attorney General who needs on-the-job training. We need to elect an Attorney General who's a conservative and a fighter and who's demonstrated the willingness to do that for the people that elected him.
If you do not respect the people of Northwest Georgia enough to let their voice be heard through my independent representation of them, then perhaps you should take your chairmanship and give it to a puppet who will feel indebted to you to surrender his constituents' voice.
It's very important that we elect a conservative Attorney General who's willing to stand up and fight for us and defend our state's rights against an abusive and overreaching federal government.
I do not need your position to have respect, and I do not need your title to have honor.
I think we can solve many of our problems if we don't pander to those special interests who are trying to grow government to meet everybody's desire and instead stick to the foundational things that made government what it should be. I'm Preston Smith, and I would appreciate your vote in the Republican primary on July the 20th.